There is some confusion actually about habits. So a habit is an action, any action that you repeatedly do. And I like to use the example because a lot of like finance people I've noticed will say, okay, it's time to work on our habits for the new year. The first habit I encourage is to set up automatic savings. And I'm like, ooh, that is not a habit at all. First of all, that's a one-time action that you
Building better financial habits with Finance Rocks this week on the Extreme Personal Finance Show. All right, today we're going to talk with Roxanne from FinanceRox. She's a money coach, a certified habit coach, an accountant, and a total financial badass. From poverty to buying a house with cash, she's paid off nearly $50,000 in debt. She hit Coast Fi and is really moving towards being FIRE by the age of 39. Roxanne helps people ditch the money stress, helps you save more, and build the kind of financial confidence that turns people that are fearful of money into freedom. So let's go ahead and fire it up with Roxanne. Roxanne, how you doing?
I'm good. Thank you. Thank you for having me on, Chris.
Awesome. Absolutely. Absolutely. So you and I met recently at, well, we met at Economy first, right?
I think just
Was it
FinCon.
FinCon?
FinCon,
Okay.
yeah.
They blur together. That's
Yeah,
awesome. So have you been to Economy? I can't remember.
I have. Yeah, a few years ago.
Right on. That's cool. That's cool. So I'm really excited because you and I were talking, we met at FinCon, we're talking, and one, heavy metal money and finance rocks. It just makes sense.
Makes sense.
And then we started talking about the changes one needs to make to really build better financial habits. Why? And I'm super curious. Like I'm kind of like a habit junkie. Like I've read all the books and I try to adopt all these new strategies and tactics on how to build better habits, or most importantly, how to stop doing the bad habits.
Mm.
And you are a certified habit coach. So I'm excited to talk about how we can blend habits and finance together, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's awesome. So one of the first things I was going to ask you is, what was that, I guess, aha moment you went through to realize, okay, my financial habits have to change?
Ooh. Okay, so it's a good question. I actually am a long timer in the finance space. Like I've been interested in finance since I was very young. Like I was the person with the three piggy banks, and I would like
Okay.
stack everything up, count everything up, and then like I'm gonna recount it, like strike all my piles and start again. So
That's awesome.
I've always been interested in it. I wanted to have different financial habits than my parents had. So that was a big one, like security and having that, comfort and less stress has always been really important to me. There have been times where I had that moment of like, ooh, man, I need to change something, but that was more with regards to income specifically rather than like saving and those types of habits.
I'm curious though, you mentioned that you wanted to have different habits than your parents.
Mm.
Where did that come from? How did you like know that you wanted to be, I guess, do I say better with money?
Yeah, yeah, that's fair. Yeah. I think that my parents were really good at being frugal when they absolutely had to be. But then, it was like as soon as money came in, and there's the whole cycle of like going through like deprivation. And then when you finally get money, it is really hard to have the discipline to not, go and spend it all on it's like to soothe that deprivation that has happened. So definitely breaking that cycle. So I learned some good frugal habits from them, stretching a dollar. My mom was great at cooking, and so I learned lots of habits in the kitchen. Um, so yeah, learned some good habits from them, and then thought that I needed to have some other habits as far as how to actually keep money once I had it.
That's awesome. What do you think some of the absolute, like, if you were starting from the ground up, the foundational habits like someone would need that to really start to change their relationship with money? What do you think some of those first habits would be?
Yeah, so I mean, you talked about, breaking bad habits versus creating new. And I think that breaking some of the really bad habits, I think the biggest one that most people face is neglect. Just not
Mm,
looking at their finances, I've had clients that are afraid to open the mail
Yeah,
and
yeah.
just let it. Are you familiar with this?
Yes.
I've had clients who are afraid to open the mail, like just
Oh,
absolutely
sure.
not looking at their balances. So I think neglect is one of the biggest ones. Throwing money at every problem. And certainly some problems are, best served by throwing money at them. But I've had clients where I'm like, okay, let's come up with some things that you're going to do to save more money and spend less. And it was like, buy a Keurig so I don't buy coffee, buy a bike so that I don't, drive as much, buy this, buy that. And I was like, this is more like a shopping list than how to,
Right,
you know,
right.
things you're going to do to cut spending. So I've become very aware of that when, people are like, oh, here's a problem, let's throw money at it. And that's a hard habit to break as well, like getting more creative and resourceful.
Total. I used to be totally like that. Like, okay, I'm going to get
Mhm.
organized. I'm going to go buy a new planner. Oh, I'm going to get organized. I got to go buy new storage containers. Like, I used to be totally like that. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a tough one. And then I think one of the other main ones that I see is people will look at their bank balance and then they equate it with how much I can spend. So seeing the balance and equating it. And we're going to talk about habits today. And so in that example, looking at your bank balance would be the cue of the habit. So then you're going to go through some thought processes and then, your habits around spending. So I think those are some of the main ones that.
Okay. Well, that's kind of a great point. So let's talk a little bit about the ways that, the mindset and the way that we train our brain. Like, what is our brain looking for? You mentioned kind of the cue. Walk us through a little bit on how habits work. Like, why are we kind of stuck in those bad habits? And then obviously we want to create newer ones. So talk a little bit about how habits work.
Yeah, so I think that there is some confusion actually about habits. So a habit is an action, any action that you repeatedly do. And I like to use the example because a lot of like finance people I've noticed will say, okay, it's time to work on our habits for the new year. The first habit I encourage is to set up automatic savings, so an automatic transfer. And I'm like, ooh, that is not a habit at all. First of all, that's a that's a one-time action that you take.
Sure.
And so I think that a lot of people do it because, it's one of the ways that finance creators earn money is recommending savings accounts. And so I think that's kind of how it has snuck in there. But so there's definitely a recurring nature to it. And then I love Charles Duhigg, if you have read Power of Habit. And so he goes over like routine and reward. So you want to think of those three steps because you can't change the cue, right? The cue is anything that happens in our environment that triggers something. But we have some ability to change our routines and we have some ability to adjust the rewards that we receive. So kind of identifying like problem cues. For a lot of people with finance, it ends up being emotional things. I'm sure as you've noticed, some people will spend when they're bored. Some people spend when they're happy. They're like, oh yeah, like let's celebrate, let's go shopping or, something like that. So there's lots of, and then there's the traditional like sad and lonely, so go shopping online kind of thing. And then I think one of the other main principles of habits that people should know about is the idea of a keystone habit. Again, not my creation, but it's one habit that helps you create other habits or all other habits. So you'll hear a lot of like self-development people talk about the importance of making your bed every morning. So that would be one example for them. And they can vary based on different people, right? Like not the one habit that's going to like make everything easier for everybody. So I think that like waking up early is another common one, drinking a glass of water in the morning. So certainly there's like certain habits that help create other habits and then you can like add habits onto that, the idea of habit stacking. For
Yeah,
finance,
I
oh,
remember
go ahead.
reading that. Well, no, I remember habit stacking was a big one that I got from James Clear and
Yes.
Atomic Habits. Yeah, stacking those habits on top of each other.
Yeah. Yeah. So identifying your keystone habit, that's a great one to build on because it's so powerful. And, we could talk about your overall level of discipline in your life and how that can affect your habits and both with breaking and creating new habits as well. So for finance, I think some of the keystone habits would be like tracking your spending. So that's one that I'm really big into, being aware of it, because that's the counterpoint to neglect.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's a good one. Some people will say like pay yourself first is a great keystone habit for your finances. Yeah, so.
Yeah, I when I first discovered all of this, basically personal finance and everything happened for me when I got divorced, and I absolutely didn't want to know how much money we didn't have. Like I didn't want to know how much we were spending on groceries. I didn't want to know how much we were spending on our bills because it would make me frustrated and depressed.
Fair
And
enough.
so to your point, it was very much a neglect. That was where I was coming from a place of neglect for sure back 2015, 2016. So that's definitely true for sure. So you mentioned triggers. I am always kind of confused, and maybe you can help me understand the difference between like a habit versus an addiction versus a ritual. I kind of always get those blurred together, and I sometimes use them interchangeably. Interchange. I said that wrong. Interchangeably. So here's the thing. Like for instance, I used to have a habit that I would always crack my knuckles like this, right? Often I wouldn't even know I was doing it. So like, are habits something that, are you conscious you're doing them, or is it something that you just do it, like driving a car, right? You start driving a car when you're 16, and it's like every freaking brain cell to know what you're doing. But now you can drive to the store, and then you get there and you're like, I don't even know how I got here, because it's a habit now. I guess that's the question for you is, does a habit need to be something you're aware of? I don't know.
Hmm.
What are your thoughts?
Yeah, well, first of all, I definitely don't think at all while I'm driving. That probably contributes to even not being the best driver. So I probably shouldn't speak to that in particular. But the tricky thing, like you're pointing out, is that they can be subconscious or conscious. So it's a mix. As far as I know, I've heard them used interchangeably as well. Like addiction, there may be one or more habits related to that particular addiction. So different cues, like you get in a fight with your mom, and that's like a cue that you are then seeking some kind of routine, some kind of comfort, and that maybe is, drugs or alcohol, or any of the
Hmm.
addictions. So yeah, it's tricky because of that.
I know one thing that I often did, well, and I still do today. You mentioned the cue, and trying to, I guess, eat healthier. Like I know that I just don't have chips and cookies in the house. That was the way that I could just not. I mean, if they were here, I mean, my kids come over like to visit, and they're always like, "Dad, you have no snacks." It's like, because if I have snacks, I eat them. And so that was a key thing for me where I just will not have those snacks in there, or I replace it with, believe it or not, like carrot sticks and celery, because if they're there when I'm bored, I'll eat them, but I don't feel as bad as a bag of Doritos, right? So,
Yeah. Yeah, you're bringing up a really great point as well, which is how much our environment can impact our habits and routines. Since, it's cue based, yeah, the things in our environment are absolutely going to be cueing us and or triggering us to do certain things, to eat certain things. So yeah, absolutely. I like you try not to buy chips, cookies, soda, those kinds of things because I love them. So, yes, absolutely. Thinking about how you can set up your environment to have either like visual reminders or the lack of visual reminders for and it's hard to call them negative, but any habits that you're trying to change, because I try to be kind to myself and kind to my clients in that our brains are solving problems for us. And so really thinking about, is grabbing that bag of Doritos or whatever chips, Cool Ranch in particular.
have you put Cool Ranch in the freezer? Game changer.
No,
Game changer.
in the freezer. Okay, interesting.
Yes.
No, I'll do it. But so, I think it's an opportunity to learn ourselves better, to become more familiar with ourselves, because what is that doing for us? What emotion is that helping us feel that we want to feel? What problem is it solving? Because, if we're more in tune with the cues then we're going to be more, able to come up with a suitable replacement routine.
What do you think are some of the most common environmental like traps for people that may be sabotaging their finances? What are some environmental things that people often will change to start to be better with their finances?
So one of the first things that came to mind is like online shopping. So the habit of like sitting down to eat your lunch and opening, whatever stores apps that you like to shop at. So I think that's one. Not having, so this is a not having, so not having easily prepared and ready to go foods. So, that's when, the alternative becomes door dashing or unhealthy foods or nutrient non-dense? Nutrient, what's the opposite of dense all of a sudden?
Yeah. I don't know, empty calories. I get it, right?
Yeah. Great, thank you. Oh my gosh. All of a sudden I forget words that exist.
Words are hard. I get it.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. So yeah, I think that there's things like that definitely affect our finances that are environmental things.
Yeah, I know one tip that often people will say is to remove automatic payment methods or credit
Hmm.
card information from shopping because let me tell you, opening up the Amazon app and just doing tap and it's on its way, that's dangerous stuff, man. Like,
Yes. Yeah, it's very satisfying to be able to experience that so
right?
quickly. Yeah.
Can you imagine our like kids today, they have no clue how hard it was. Like I had to get on my bike and ride to the mall to buy stuff. You know what I mean? Like,
Mm.
and now it's like instant gratification, instant delivery whenever they want. It's so
Hmm.
great. They live in such a good time or
Yeah, I
non-good
know.
time. I guess not a very good time. It depends how you look at it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. On that note, I feel one of the weirder tips that I've given clients is, like you mentioned, riding your bike to the store, only going like physically shopping within an hour of when they're closing or like a half
Oh,
hour within their closing. So that way you have a forced end time and you can
sure.
kind of like
You
use
can't
that.
just browse. You can't just browse. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
That's a good idea. I like that
Yeah,
one.
thanks.
It
Thanks.
was so funny. I was in the mall recently. Why was I there? I can't remember. Oh, because I went to our Mall of America that's here. Have you ever been to the Mall of America in Minneapolis?
I have not.
Or it's actually in Bloomington. It was super awesome back in the 90s because it was like giant. Now there's bigger ones. But anyway, I was there because they had like this haunted house thing. And so I went to this, but I was walking around the mall and I felt so weird because I'm like, all these people are just like walking around spending money on crap they don't need. I mean, it was everywhere. People carrying bags, and it's just like, you know what? People say malls are dying. I don't, there was a lot of freaking people at the mall. And it was a Tuesday. Like, what? Anyway,
Yeah. One of my strategies for controlling like impulse spending and that
hmm
kind of thing, I call it purchase procrastination.
oh,
So, writing down everything that you want and then waiting a predetermined amount of time, whether that be a month or until it will fit in a budget. And then I feel like if you just try and suppress those wants and those impulses, it just kind of backfires. But I feel like if you actually write it down, it like honors the intention of what you wanted. And then it gives you that time and space to actually think through, like, okay, do I really want that? Can I find alternatives? So, like when I was paying off debt and saving for the house and everything, I did a lot of thrift first, I call it. So, like, can I find this used or discounted somehow before I commit to actually buying something new? So, giving yourself some space in between the impulse and desire to have something and then the actual execution of buying it.
sure. Do you typically like give yourself, some people will say, wait 24 hours or wait a week to see if you really want that thing. Although, man, they're really good at sending you reminders. Hey, you left this in your cart. Are you sure you don't want it?
Yeah.
Totally.
Well, you can do whatever time frame. I feel like it's kind of becomes a discipline thing at some point. Like as long as it's like, yeah, 48 hours or something, that's enough time to at least think about it a little bit more thoroughly. I like a month or if not the budget following after those 30 days,
Okay.
just to
Okay.
like really space it out. I think that kind of has gotten me in the habit of thinking more seasonally. about, is that a word? Seasonally?
Yeah, that's a
Again,
word.
okay, thanks. about about my spending because I'm like, okay, is this the right time to buy this particular thing? Oh, well, if I wait one more month until, spring starts, then, winter coats are going to be a lot less expensive. So it kind of gives you the more planning power
Yep.
as well.
I like that. There recently though, there was one thing that waiting absolutely kind of bit me in the ass. And it was buying one. I get so frustrated when I do, because I usually will, again, put it in my cart. I'll wait to see how I feel, next week or whatever. Often things will be gone or they won't be on sale again or whatever. But recently I'm going to be in January. I'm going to be in Orlando for a conference, and I was like, oh, I'm going to stay another few days, and I'll go to to Universal or go to the parks, right? Have fun. And I looked up flights, and tickets were like flights were like $158 round trip. So I'm like, oh, so I text my kids. I'm like, hey man, do you guys want to come down to Florida with me and hang out? And like, I don't know. Like, let me think about it. And like literally within 2 days, the tickets now were like $400.
Ooh.
And so I was like, damn it. I should have
Yeah.
just bought them. But that was my own fault.
Yeah. I mean, it's a fair point. That absolutely can and does happen. I've had it happen to me where the thing is no longer available or more expensive. I mean, it has also happened the other way where it's like suddenly the thing I want is even on a better discount or, it has gone on sale. And then ultimately, a lot of the things I add on my list, I end up not buying at all. So I think that just based on my own personal experience, it's worked out way in the favor of, waiting has been a saving. But yeah, it's tough. And, our human brains, they tend to like to focus on the negative, right? The downsides,
Mhm.
the fears of what might happen. So yeah, it's absolutely true. I can't deny it.
What's that thing? What's that thing that you typically splurge on? What's your like guilty pleasure?
Well, I have purple hair right now, and it is not cheap at
Mhm.
all. It's one of the least frugal things I've ever done in my life. So, yeah, I think that's kind of a splurge for me. I love traveling as well. So, I think that those would be the two.
So one thing that I remember reading, I think it was Atomic Habits by James Clear, was talking about how you start to really make a difference in your habits once you change your identity. And why, I mean, that really hit me strong because I thought of, for instance, like I don't smoke because I'm not a smoker. Like I identify as someone who doesn't smoke. Okay, it's super easy. It's defined. It's black and white. That's my identity. And so they're talking about, let's say you want to go for a run. They were talking about, well, you're not someone that just goes for a run. You are now a runner and you identify as a runner. And it helps you kind of build that habit of who you are. I guess, what do you think some identity shifts people can do to get in better money or better financial habits, right? Because it's more focused with your identity. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, so I think that it can be tough to make such a big jump from, one identity to another. So I like to think of it as like negative thinking versus positive thinking. Instead of trying to jump all the way from negative to positive, try jumping from negative to neutral. So instead of like, I never work out, I'm not a runner, you might say, I am, which is the identity part, I am becoming a runner, or I'm learning how to be a runner, or something along those lines of like a more neutral rather than like, I'm a runner now. Guess what?
Right.
I'm a runner now. So it can be hard to make that jump. So I think catching yourself being negative and then moving towards a more neutral for any of those thoughts. And I mean, that relates to both identity thoughts and just thoughts in general, right? Like more negative to neutral.
Sure. So how do people, especially like with their finances, because this is something that happens to me all the time. Like I remember, I try to walk every day, try to get my steps in. And I remember one time, I mean, I walked every single day for like 122 days straight, right? Without missing a day. And then I got sick, or I think I got COVID or something, and then like all of a sudden there was like a week where I didn't. Then I tried to walk, and I was just super wiped out, super tired, couldn't do it. And then next thing you know, it's 3 months later, and I haven't walked. Right. So, how do you think it's best to handle those setbacks? Right. So like people fall off the wagon, but you don't want to give up. So like if you have like a financial habit you're trying to build, and all of a sudden, you went through the drive-through and you bought, you spent way too much money on that. I don't know. I was trying to think of a funny. Actually, have you ever had In-N-Out Burger?
I have.
I'm underwhelmed.
Underwhelmed.
I'm just, here in the Midwest, I remember like people were like, you got to go to In-N-Out. So I was out in California, go to In-N-Out, and I'm like, I'd pick Culver's over In-N-Out. That's just me. Maybe that's
Yeah.
Midwest me talking. I don't know.
Yeah, we didn't have either in Montana, but I would agree kind of that there's so much hype around them, but I don't
That's right.
know. Maybe it's because in Montana there's like beef and the cattle industry is so big there that like we have really good hamburgers everywhere you go. So maybe I'm a snob, I guess, of
Roxanne, the
hamburgers.
burger snob. That's right.
I know, burger snob. Okay, so you asked, help I've fallen off the wagon and I can't get up.
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
I think embracing the fresh start, and people do this on the new year, that's kind of what it's most known for, but trying to create a new fresh start. One thing I like to do is people set New Year's resolutions and then follow off them with it like in the first couple weeks. So if that happens to me, I will always say, okay, well, I'm going to start Chinese New Year, which is usually sometimes like February. Like, okay, that's my new year. That's my new start. So you can get creative with creating a new fresh start for
Every Monday.
yourself.
I start
Every
over every
Monday,
Monday.
every Monday is a good one. Each day is a good one. It has limited success, obviously, because, there's the whole like Monday syndrome, right? Where it's like, oh yeah, next Monday, next Monday. But yeah, I think that I don't know. I think that pep talks, I give myself a lot of pep talks when it comes to that kind of thing to try and get, again, from negative to a more neutral place of like, oh, okay, this is something that I can, get back on. And yeah, I think the never missing two in a row, that's not mine idea either, but I think that's really helpful. But you're right. Like if you get sick, sometimes you just, you can't help it. I also am a big believer in finances that it's not always the right time to be,
Hmm.
focusing on your finances. One of
Oh,
the main reasons, oh,
I was gonna say dive into that a little bit more.
yeah, so one of the main reasons that I wanted to have money, even when I was a kid, was like, well, I want to be able to be there for my three little brothers in case of an emergency. So, if I was in that situation, like, is that the right time to be like trying to save money? No. I don't want to be transferring money I don't want to be selling investments. I don't want to be having to transfer money. I want to have enough money basically ready to go. So that way, if something bad happens, knock on wood, that, I don't have to deal with money. I love finance, but ultimately I don't care about it at all,
That's
which is not
interesting.
a good thing to say.
No, I mean that's because you truly are looking at money as just the tool to do what you want to do,
Yes.
not the money itself, which I get,
Yeah.
right? I
So there
think more
absolutely,
people I think more people need to look at it that way, right?
yeah.
But
Because there absolutely are times with clients where I'm like, listen, like your mom's in the hospital, we'll deal with saving. It's not the right time. So I think having priorities around that is important.
I like that. Yeah. How do you come at those people? You have those clients that they come at you with this, well, I'm just bad with money, right? Like I always have been, right? I'm just bad with money. What do you tell them? How do you get them to turn that around and like get more like in control of their money?
Yeah, so I should probably say I am not a therapist or psychologist, even though I aspire to play one on the internet. But I think having actually going through my divorce recently, I've been going to therapy for the last year. One of the most helpful things I've learned from that is it's called Socratic questioning. So not just believing any thought that comes into our mind, but kind of questioning it and pushing back more because I do have clients that will say, "Oh, I'm bad with money," and I'll say, "Well, not sure what you're talking about because the last 3 months you hit your savings goal. You're doing all these things. Like it can be really easy to slip into that. Oh, I'm just bad at it." But then you really have to question it and provide the counterpoints in your own mind as far as like, oh, is that really true? Well, here's some evidence to the contrary. And while there's evidence that that might be true, that you are bad with money, why focus on that? Why let that run away? In fact, I had a client one time that was really upset about having an overdraft fee and, was really upset and was like, oh, this is just more evidence that I'm bad with money. And I remember telling her like, oh, you know what? This was an administrative issue. You had a thing come up that you weren't expecting to hit right now. But ultimately, if we look at your savings, you are paying off debt even this month. So yes, things can happen that, can support that I'm bad with money, but we need to build that laundry list of like, oh, but here are all the things I've done right with money.
And one thing too, if you start to build those good habits with money and all of a sudden there's like an overdraft, that's one out of the last couple of years. Call them up and say, hey, I'm sorry, but chances are if it's your first one, they'll take it back. So just FYI for those listening.
Good idea.
It's like one doesn't have to derail your entire progress. You know what I mean? Yeah. So there's one thing that I'm really curious about, and that's how you've mixed humor and comedy with finance. You've done like stand up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, where does that come from? How does finance turn into, hey, I want to go tell jokes? I'm just curious.
Yeah. So I feel like those are my two main interests. So I've been
Okay.
trying to find some overlap. I heard this is probably a bit personal, but I heard a comedian say the other day that show me someone whose parents are depressed and I'll show you someone who's funny. So
Yeah, that's good.
for a lot of people, we learn to be funny early on as a way of like coping with the world and like trying to cheer up a parent or something like that. And so I don't know, I've always been funny basically. And so I feel like why not use that in my content creation as well? People learn better when the content is humorous, like it's easier to remember. And I just find it to be, I don't know, more fun. So
I
yeah,
believe that. And those of you, I'll put a link down in the show notes to go watch Roxanne's talk from Camp Fi. Again, pretty funny. It's pretty good.
yeah. Yeah, thank you. I
Um,
did how to be
yeah,
funny, how to make your life whimsical AF and funny. So I did
I love
some,
it.
thanks. I did some joke writing basics and then talked about some of the strategies I use to make life whimsical. And it's great because a lot of the things that you can do to be funny and whimsical cost nothing. It's such an affordable hobby to have.
Right on. I know. One of my comedian that I really like too. Those of you that may know Brian Posehn, but again, he combines humor and metal, and he's been doing comedy, but he always like talks about how now he's the creepy old guy at the metal shows, and it is so great. I just went to go see him live just this past fall, and yeah, it was it was hilarious. It's pretty good. So speaking of which, you know what I did? Oh, man, I can't believe I did it. So I had never seen Jerry Seinfeld live ever. And I saw that he's going to have dates coming up and he was going to be here in Minneapolis. And I'm like, oh, cool. I went and looked at the calendar. I'm like, oh, awesome. I bought 2 tickets. I misread the calendar somehow. I don't know. I'm going to be out of town.
Oh,
I'm such an idiot.
yeah, that's a
So now I
bummer.
have 2 tickets to Seinfeld, which I
Mm,
don't know. Maybe it's a good thing because maybe I can sell them. I don't know. But
yeah.
sell them and make a profit? I don't know.
I don't personally, I cannot recommend that
Nope. Nope.
for legal purposes.
That's
Oh
right.
yeah,
That's
that's
right.
a bummer because he's really funny. Yeah.
Oh, totally. So if you were gonna tell someone, so someone that's listening, someone that's watching on YouTube, if they kind of feel as though, okay, now's the time I want to start building better financial habits. What's some of the first things you mentioned? Track expenses. What's some of the next steps that they should do to start building better habits?
Okay, yeah, I think this is great. So, identifying what habits you want to do. I think tracking spending is an excellent one. I've only had one or two clients ever that didn't really impact them. But for most people, seeing their spending helps tremendously with like the motivation to change. And I even recommend doing it just picking if it feels overwhelming to do tracking spending, because it can be kind of a pain in the butt, you can pick one category and track it like on a whiteboard in your house or something like that. I did that with tracking restaurant and food spending for a while. So do it in one category if it's overwhelming. Making it smaller, a lot of people will be like, oh yeah, I'm going to have this, big habit, or trying to make it as small as possible, which I know, because then it's like, okay, well, am I going to do one push-up, right? Like, well, it's not going to make a difference. But, reminding ourselves that, oh, I have to do one push-up in order to do 10. So it's the same thing with finance, like try and make it make it smaller and easier to manage. I think purchase procrastination is a great habit that people can start as far as like tracking their wants and impulses, and having learning habits like consuming financial content every week. That was one of the things I did early on, was like I'd go to CNBC, the money section, and do like their personal finance article. I would just read that. And sometimes you get tips from there, but also it's kind of just a reminder, right? Because so much of it comes down to behavior for our finances. So really focusing on, keeping it at the top of mind awareness. I think that learning element helps that.
Yeah, I think often the math isn't really that hard, right? Spend less than you make. But it truly, like you said, it's truly the emotional piece. Like spending and money management is so much not necessarily about the numbers.
Yeah, I think that's great. I think that, like we were talking about earlier, environment as well. And I mean, I think it kind of comes down to like, Ryan Holiday has his book, The Obstacle is the Way. The obstacle is the way for our finances too. So whatever the hangups are, addressing those. And because I've even had clients that are like, oh, well, could work more, but my back hurts. And so, I mean, I've been helping this guy like troubleshoot his back pain and like, things that he can do to manage it. So it can go outside of the realm of finance, but then, it's like whatever the obstacle is what you have to overcome. Lean into that.
That's awesome. Well, as we start to wrap up here, where can people find more about you? And maybe they want to get your help and help building better financial habits and get some coaching. Let people know where they can find you and all your information.
Yeah, so I'm FinanceRox, as a ROX, and there's no space in between it. Thank you. Also, for the record, I know I sound very corporate, like I sound like I'm reaching out to you about your car's extended warranty. But I actually grew up pretty rock and roll. My parents were really into Christian rock and roll specifically. Anyway, it's not my go-to, but I enjoy like Seether and, a lot of. Anyway, so I'm not I fit in.
That's right.
So yeah, FinanceRox, and it's like that everywhere. I'm on everything: YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn even. So yeah, everywhere.
Well, thanks so much for your time today. I really do appreciate it. This was super fun. And those of you that are listening and follow along on YouTube, thank you so much. Please like, subscribe, and share. And we'll see you next time on the Extreme Personal Finance Show. See you.